This video is to show you how you can auto-create a live safe work procedure. This is a work in progress, but the details you get on the safe work procedure are extremely detailed and do provide the controls to keep your workers safe and your managers from litigation if something does go wrong. Without proper training, competencies, or experience opens the company and the directors up to very serious legal issues if an incident occurs. You should watch the other videos first so you understand a bit more about the product. This video is showing another method to create a safe work procedure. Click on the Start Building Procedure. First you select the company, the sites for this company appear and you select the correct one. You can't see the drop-downs in this video. You can even select the area on a site. Enter a description for the job. This can be changed later if needed. When you are ready, click on Create Procedure. You now get an option to manually or automatically populate the procedure. Manually is how it was shown in previous videos. Click on Automatically Populate. The first task is to select any permits needed to do this job. Select from the list of permits. You can delete or add more once you have created the procedure as well. There is also the option of typing in a different permit. Both permits have been added to the procedure. They can be deleted or modified later if required. Click on the Next Step button at the bottom. You now need to select what qualifications are required to carry out this work. All qualifications VOC's licenses are in this list. We need a rigger for this job, so type it in the search function and select what type of rigger we need. We add a couple more, a boilermaker and a heavy vehicle fitter. You can select all at one time or add one not in the list manually. These qualifications will later check against the records of the allocated workers to ensure we have the right people for the job. It is a legal requirement that personnel are trained and competent to carry out work. Working on any machinery without training or qualifications of any sort is a very dangerous practice and leaves the company at serious risk of breaching the WorkSafe regulations. All workers must be deemed competent to carry out any task. You cannot, for example, just work on high-pressure hydraulics or weld a bracket without extensive training and a competency test. Click on Next Step and you will ask to enter all tools you are using on the job. There is a very comprehensive list of tools with all hazards and controls. I look for and find a rattle gun. When I entered all the details including comprehensive controls for a rattle gun are shown along with any attached images. Next I select hand tools. There are many hazards and controls just for using hand tools and they are all brought into the procedure. You can see how comprehensive the controls for the hazards are. They both have multiple links and images as well. We add an extension lead. Yes, an extension lead can create multiple risks, which we need to control. So you can see we have a lot of controls for an extension lead. These are the controls that rarely make a SWIMS or a safe work procedure, but regularly show up in investigations as serious risks. The next step is to add equipment we are using on the job. Tools and equipment can be similar. There is a lot of equipment to select from. First we select a step ladder. These are never mentioned in SWIMS, but the use of a step ladder has many controls needed, as can be seen from our data. Then we add a chain block, a dry chemical fire extinguisher, and an eye wash safety shower. These are all part of the job and the hazards and controls are usually ignored. The amount of information added to the SWIMS is comprehensive, including images, multiple controls and videos. The next step takes us to a selection of vehicles used on the job. There are comprehensive controls for many vehicles including four-wheel drive cars, trucks, forklifts and trailers to name a few. Select what vehicles you are using and the data and controls are added to the procedure. All types of vehicles have extensive controls. Before moving on to the next input area, we would point out that the need for very comprehensive controls for all types of vehicles is very evident in the amount of fatalities and serious incidents every year. Working on or around vehicles is one of the highest risk areas in the workplace. The figures prove this, and the need for multiple controls is clearly evident. When you are finished entering vehicles, click the Next Step button. The next section is work areas. Many work areas need very specific safety controls to mitigate the risks. The one just added was the maintenance workshop. There are many controls needed to work in the maintenance workshop. Understanding work areas and controlling work area hazards are crucial to providing a safe workplace. Work area hazards are usually forgotten in a swims. Work types are specific types of work that have their own generic hazards. Hydraulic work is a good example. There are a lot of hazards to control and understand when carrying out hydraulic work that never make it to a safe work procedure or job safety analysis. We have added most risks and controls you will encounter when doing hydraulic type work. Once again, we point out that allowing unskilled and untrained personnel to carry out work like hydraulic or pneumatic work would be deemed a breach of the workplace regulations if an incident occurred. Do not put your company at risk of serious penalties for breaching the regulations. Next is environmental hazards. Some of the in-depth controls include lightning, noise, and the sun. All of these have comprehensive controls added. We also add the hazard, work groups nearby, above or below. This reminds staff of all requirements if other work groups or personnel are nearby. The next area is chemicals. This brings in all chemicals used, SDS details and controls for all common chemicals used. We type in CRC, then select the CRC that we want. All details are added to the safe work procedure. The link to an online SDS is provided. ND will be available to everyone using the procedure. There are a lot of chemicals, paints, sprays in this section. Every chemical used will have the risks and controls and its own SDS for the worker to view online and on the job. The next selection area is for general safety. A lot of very important site or company information can be categorized as general safety. There is a lot in this area, but we select a few just as a demonstration. We select emergency response and existing medical conditions. The link in emergency response will show the company emergency response procedure. Existing medical conditions reminds the staff they have to report existing medical conditions. We also select fatigue, housekeeping and isolations and tagging. We can show you some of this later. For good measure we add mobile phones, PPE standards, prohibited and restricted items, site contacts and team meetings. You will see later this brings in a lot of information for the safe work procedure, including lists of site contacts, site policies, site rules and a lot of controls for these risks. As you can see, a lot of information, links, images and video has been brought into the procedure. This can all be edited later. We are now asked questions relating to fatality risks involved in the job. If a fatality risk is present, the staff need to do a fatality risk assessment, which is added to the procedure. The fatality risks are all online and are simple question and answer to verify if the work is safe to carry out. The first question is asking if there is work to be carried out in a confined space. The answer is no. The next question is to do with falling or dropped objects. We answer yes to this question, and a fatality risk information sheet and a checklist is added to the procedure to be completed online before the job starts. These checklists take less than 5 minutes and force compliance with fatality risk rules. This is our struck by a falling object checklist. The list is a simple check and comment. This sheet is kept and attached to the job and is available even after the job has been archived. The next question relates to lifting, working under equipment. We answer yes, and information and a check is added to the procedure. The next question relates to entanglement in rotating equipment. We answer yes again. The next question relates to falling from heights. We answer no. Next, we are asked if there are any other fatality risks involved, and we can pick any that are applicable. We have now entered the base information for our safe work procedure. All information is placed in the correct areas of the procedure. At this stage, the important work steps have not been created. At the bottom of the safe work procedure is the critical area where we add every work step and risk assess each one. First, let's look at a couple of pieces of the information we have entered automatically so you can see the depth of controls we employ. Before we add the work steps, let's have a very quick look at a few of the hazards and controls that were added by us to this procedure. We added lightning, as we thought there was the possibility of lightning affecting the job. This brought in the following information, links and images. This can be edited, deleted or completely modified to suit once it is added to the procedure. It is not static. The hazard and risk are noted. These can be modified to suit this procedure. Next, we show the controls. These controls will vary depending on the site or company lightning policy. The yellow buttons are links to videos, images, or other media needed to explain this hazard. Note 1 says lightning policy. This goes to a website where the company lightning policy is shown. We click on the yellow lightning policy button and are taken to a separate website where the site's lightning policy is shown. Once again, this is changed for each site or company. We click on the button, Lightning Facts, and are taken to another website explaining lightning. Another button takes us to a website showing myths about lightning. We can add any information, images or videos to this hazard. It is a simple task. It is clear in the legislation that as an employer you must provide your workforce with information. Well, for EMUS provides ample information to satisfy the legal requirements. There is a lot more information on lightning in the procedure, but let's have a quick look at what has been entered for a four-wheel drive vehicle. These are very in-depth hazards and controls and can be modified at any time to suit the procedure. Let's open up the video attached to this hazard. The video is from the regulator and is about mining vehicle safety.
All mining operations feature a range of vehicles. These vary from heavy mobile.
Every hazard can have multiple attached videos. We can make our own very quickly to add to hazards. The videos become even more important when we start showing real work tasks later in work steps. Let's now go and start adding some work steps. These are the actual steps we take to carry out the work with all hazards and controls mentioned. Work steps can be added, moved, deleted as we go, so they do not even have to be in the correct order to start with. I use a first work step called Have a Team Meeting. This is crucial if there is a group of people, and there are some very common hazards to be controlled by not having a meeting and sharing information. The first work step is created. We will not go into the wait and estimated times at this stage. That is a more advanced topic for later. Each work step can then have hazards attached. We can point to a hazard ND controls in our procedure, or we can write a new manual hazard and controls. We have a hazard in our procedure called Team Meetings, so we will point to that hazard. Click on the Import Hazards button and a selection screen will appear. Type in Team Meeting and select the hazard, Team Meeting Hazards and Controls. This is what is referred to as a pointer hazard, and will be explained more later. Suffice to say that in a large work procedure, a hazard like manual labor may be needed on a lot of work steps. So we do not have 20-line manual labor hazards and controls on every work step. We use pointer hazards to point to the manual labor hazards and controls in the main part of the procedure. This is done because you cannot cover every manual handling issue with a one-line statement like most safe work procedures try to do. So if we click anywhere inside the Team Meeting pointer hazard, it opens up for editing. Down the bottom is the link to the full Team Meeting hazard that we have already added to our procedure previously. So we do not repeat the main hazard, and if team meeting came up again, in work steps, we just add another pointer hazard. We add another work step. This is mobilization to the work site. It is automatically numbered number 2. The number and order can be changed later. We have a main hazard in our procedure for mobilization, but just to show you, we add it as a full hazard under this step. It is not a hazard that would be used multiple times, so does not need the pointer hazard. We add a new work step. Set up the work site for the job. Move tools and equipment to the work site. Remember, this can all be changed, deleted or moved later. This is not a Word document. We now add hazards to this task. First hazard is manual handling, so we want to add a manual handling pointer to this work step. So we find the manual handling hazards and controls, which is a hazard pointer. When we enter it, we get a warning at the top of the screen. This warning is telling us that the main hazard for manual handling has not been added to the procedure. There are multiple methods to enter the manual handling main hazard. We go to the All Hazards area and find manual handling and enter it to the procedure. We scroll down to work types and see manual handling has been entered. In work types, we could have clicked on Add Hazard and entered manual handling from here. There are multiple ways to find and add a hazard. We go back to the last work step and add the pointer hazard to manual handling. It allows it now that we have the main manual hazard entered to the procedure. You can edit the work step anytime you want. We add another hazard pointer for an extension lead to this work step. The hazard has in-depth comments about using, placing and selecting an extension cord. We add another hazard pointer for a step ladder. Takes seconds to enter. Just as an example to show you what information the workers get, we open up the pointer hazard for the step ladder and click to show the main hazard. This is very in-depth with standards, videos and relevant information about using and checking step ladders. The button I click takes you to the Work Safe site with the ability to watch a safety video on step ladders. We can add any information to the hazard and can create our own videos and graphics easily. The program does a lot more, but one thing that is important is you can move the work steps around. Nothing worse than AJSA when you need to add a step and you have to write it at the back of the paper document. We add a work step which is automatically placed at the end, then we reorder the work steps. We click on Reorder, then drag the last work step to the second position. All work steps are renumbered. So modifying work steps is really simple, and if you miss a work step, just add one and drag it where it fits. We have seen the power of all the hazards added. Now we are onto the real strength of this online procedure. We can add specific video and images to every work step. The technicians can view these images and videos live on the job. A written safe work procedure does not have this ability. The new work step has been added. We now add a specific hazard to hold videos, images, and instructions for this work step. Once this is added, we can attach videos and images directly to the work step. Videos are really simple to produce and connect to this procedure. Videos are attached as links. Many links are stored in the system, as we use the same videos in many areas. In this case, we are attaching a video just to this procedure. It will not be available to other procedures. We add a new link. It is as simple as put the URL and give it a name. That's all. Once done, append to the procedure. The video is attached to this work step until you remove it. We will add a couple of images. These are already linked images, but we could bring in new ones with arrows, instructions on them for this specific work task. Update the hazard and you will see the link to the video. The images are available once you click on the hazard. Click on the link button and the video will play. I have just used a YouTube video, but would do our own for here on our own server.
I'm drilling control. We have the drilling control joysticks first. Here in the cabin, we have our joystick for drilling. Rotation on, top left button, and the green light.
So we can add one or more videos to this work step with very specific instructions and details. Videos are easy to create. The images could be schematics, images, scans from workshop manuals, hand-drawn pictures, anything to give the workers information. The images can be printed out elsewhere. This is only a very brief overview. The program does a lot more. You finish the work, the job is archived. This is another topic. Next time you want to do the work, open the procedure, and it is exactly as you left it, ready for changes. This can be changed with ease, unlike a static Word document. Once again, there's a lot more in the program, but that is a basic overview of auto-creating a procedure you can use and modify anytime. As we wrote the program, we can modify it to suit different sites and applications.